The Brompton Cemetery opened for business in 1840. The company that got together and arranged to build the cemetery was formed in 1837, and it was one of several companies that decided to go into the cemetery business because the government had decided a few years beforehand that there simply wasn't enough space in central London anymore for burials in the city. The population of London had doubled between 1800 and 1840, and as it happened it was going to double again between 1840 and 1880. So there was a serious shortage of burial space in central London, and therefore a ring of cemeteries grew up around London, of which 7, usually known as the Magnificent 7, survive today, and Brompton is one of those 7. The cemetery is 40 acres. There are over 200,000 people buried here, and there are over 37,000 monuments in the cemetery. The land that the cemetery was built on was very flat and rather unattractive, and before it became a cemetery it had been, part of it had been a brickyard and part of it had been a market garden. In order to make it more attractive for people to encourage people to bury their family in Brompton as opposed to other cemeteries, the shareholders of the cemetery decided that they would build some really impressive, elegant buildings, and that this would be the point of attraction for their business. And as you come in the North Gate, you do get a wonderful impression as you drive up the central pathway of these magnificent Bath stone colonnades and the chapel. Originally there were going to be 3 chapels. One where the existing chapel is, one on the east side and one on the west side of the circle. Unfortunately, they ran out of money, and so they ended up with just the one chapel. There were also originally going to be 2 bell towers, one where the existing bell tower is, and one to the right of it. Unfortunately, also because the money ran out, they ended up with just 1 tower and no bells. Originally, as I mentioned before, it was a private enterprise cemetery. But in around 1850, the government decided that it didn't seem right for private enterprise to be making money out of the burial business. So they decided to try to nationalise these 7 large cemeteries that had grown up around the edges of London. The shareholders of the other 6 said, "No way, we've invested a lot of money in this business at your instigation, and we think it's grossly unfair that we should be nationalised." The shareholders of Brompton had had a difficult time because the expense of the buildings was far, far more than originally budgeted, and therefore they were quite happy to be nationalised. So they agreed to the nationalisation, and this is why Brompton is today the only one of the 7 cemeteries in the circle round London that is and remains a nationalised cemetery. It is run by the Royal Parks Agency, and the Royal Parks Agency reports to the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. Two of the main attractions at the cemetery are the beautiful Bath stone buildings, the chapel and the colonnades, and the wonderful selection of trees. There is a pamphlet available at the cemetery which helps people to do a self-guided walk around the cemetery, looking at some of the splendid trees that are here. A lot of trees were planted right at the beginning of the cemetery's life because the shareholders in the cemetery were very keen to add natural beauty to a site which was basically flat and slightly unattractive when they first took it over. The chapel was built in 1840 at the same time as the rest of the buildings, and at the same year the cemetery opened. There were originally going to be 3 chapels, one for the Church of England, one for Roman Catholics and one for others. But budget restraints meant that we just ended up with the 1 chapel. There is a slight problem with acoustics, and some voices get a bit lost, but it does provide a delightful venue for lectures, gatherings, exhibitions, etc., etc. It is available for use by the public, and all you have to do is to apply to the cemetery, see if you can use it for any event you care to try and stage. The cemetery has been open now for over 160 years, but it is still an active cemetery, and the Royal Parks Agency are hoping to continue to develop the burials business here. So if you have any interest in a family burial plot or any such thing, or you know friends who have, it deserves serious consideration. But regardless of that, it's just a lovely place to come with your family and to enjoy a beautiful place with lovely monuments, lovely buildings, lovely trees, plenty of wildlife, a bit of fresh air, a little oasis in the middle of London. So if you're in the area, do please come and give it a visit. It's well worthwhile.